What's up, guys? Today is day 50 on my journey to 2000, and I thought today would be a good day to look at, well, the first 50 days of this challenge and what's happened so far. So I learned a lot of different things. I wrote down some of them just to talk about. But let's look at my chess rating, right? When I started this challenge, my rating was 1536, I think it was. 1533, we could see right here. And it went up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And my max was 1597 on February 2nd, and right now it's 1501 because of a terrible online tournament I played the other day. But I learned from that tournament, and I basically learned a lot. One thing was looking at Chess Insights. I learned that I'm not good at the Caro-Kann, and I already didn't really like it, so I stopped playing the Caro-Kann as black. That's one thing I learned, you know? I could look at my insights, learn what I'm bad at, try to fix it, or try to go a different route. And I decided to go a different route and play King's Pawn as a result. So if you have something like this, and let's say I'm playing as black, instead of going for the Caro-Kann, which would look like something like this, which I don't do well at and I don't really like, instead of doing that, I just match it now with the King's Pawn. And the game continues, and it's actually pretty interesting for me because I'm used to playing the Caro-Kann so much that this is a nice change of pace. So that's one thing I learned. I also learned more about positional play, and especially the fact, like pawn structures, that pawns are like so crazy. There's so much involved with pawns. One thing with pawns that I learned the past 2 months was when you push a pawn, it creates openings, it creates space, where, you know, and that could change the game a lot. And I knew that before, but I pay a lot more attention to that now. Another thing is just pawn groups. So if, let's say, we have something like this, I learned how crazy it is to... I'm just going to create a stupid scenario here just to illustrate my point. I learned how crazy it is to have an isolated pawn, right? Like, there's even, like, strategies for isolated queen's pawn, isolated king's pawn. Like, this pawn is alone, right? There are no pawns to support it, and you could have strategies for trying to protect it and stuff like that. I also learned about, you know, pushing your pawns too far out. I learned that pushing the F or C pawns forward after you castle can be really strong to start a pawn storm attack. So I'm just going to illustrate this really quickly. And it's actually pretty cool. So if you have something like this, where both sides castle on the same side, let's say I take that and he take, it's like something like this. I could a lot of times, not necessarily here, but I could a lot of times push the F pawn. And I also learned that you can move the king if you have this open vertical, open flank, open file. You can use your rook to attack in that way. So that was pretty cool. So there's a lot of stuff with pawns. Also in endgames, passed pawns are insanely strong. So keeping an eye on that, you know, since the beginning of the game, especially during the middle game, can be useful. I also learned how to take a loss better. If I lose a game now, I don't get as frustrated. Especially if I lose 2-3 games in a row. I don't care as much about my elo right away. Unless I lose like 10 games, which happened the other day. But even then, I wasn't like super mad at myself, which is good. You know, so the psychological aspect. Another thing that was good, I talked about looking at insights. Rating is not that good of a thing to look at all the time when you're versing someone. So I would get intimidated by someone's rating, and right away when I would get into a game, I would go into full screen, so I don't see their rating. I realized that the rating is kind of misleading a lot of times, and I'll explain why when we go over the games I played today. Another thing, I learned some incremental moves in Scotch. So I was going to say I learned a bunch of other stuff too, but it was hard to see. One problem is I didn't make these objective things every day, right? So I didn't write down, okay, this is what I learned today. And I think that will help become a stronger player, but also help you guys to kind of get into the mindset of just trying to incrementally improve every day. Because the past 50 days, even though I'm pointing to all these things, I can't tell you what I learned on day 2, on day 5. And some days it felt like maybe I didn't learn much, you know? So kind of trying to pinpoint the learning process, I think, is a good idea. Okay, another thing I learned, the Scotch opening, which was my pretty much my favorite opening, and I was playing pretty bad with it at a certain point. But I learned in this scenario, I already knew all of these moves. Oops, nope, first the queen comes out. So I already knew all of these moves. And then both sides castle. But when my cousin came over and we played over the board, he did something a little different. Instead of castling, he moved his knight here, attacking my bishop. And I didn't know how to deal with that. So I learned as black, well, first of all, you could castle. But after castling, attacking this bishop is actually a pretty cool move. And I think it's an unexpected move. I played against, you guys could see one of my previous games on the previous day. I played this, and the other person just instinctually did their book, what is a book move a lot of the times, continuing the scotch, which I didn't know either, which is pushing the f-pawn, and they just hung a bishop, and I ended up winning the game. I learned that you can attack this bishop, and after they go back, you could attack the center pawn. And white's best response is to attack the knight, and you just put your knight back, and then he attacks your queen, and then your queen comes out here, and the game continues. And this is how crazy it looks. So this is really cool. I really like the Scotch opening, so that's cool. Another thing is the Vienna opening I learned a little bit about. Again, because my cousin came over. I think playing or talking with people who are stronger than you can teach you a lot. And the Vienna opening, you just move this knight instead of the King's Knight, if that's called the King's Knight, I don't know, instead of the G Knight. And the game progresses, and there's a line where you could sack a pawn, and it becomes pretty interesting. So I think something like this, no, not like this, whatever. It's a Vienna Gambit, it's called. So I still don't know that much about it, but at least I know that's something I could learn. That's something I could play with, you know? So that was cool. I also learned when to draw sometimes, and I'm getting better at drawing. So if we look at the insights here, it tells you, and not everyone has access to this. I'm lucky enough that I have premium and I have access to it. But it tells me that I draw 8% of the time since I started this challenge. If I look at like my all-time draw, I drew 6% of the time. You know, so I'm getting better at recognizing when to draw. Sometimes I draw in winning positions, but those are learning experiences too, to realize, recognize, this was the move I had to make, you know? A lot of times incremental queen moves are the best moves, you know, and stuff like that. So that's cool. I learned that pawn captures in calculation is super dangerous. And what I mean by that is, let's say your opponent has something like, wow, I'm really good at showing the example. Something like this. Let's say it looks something like this. And first of all, your opponent can take a lot of times with check, right? Okay, this is not the best example. Let's put it here instead. Okay. I noticed that a lot of times you can take with the pawn, and the pawn can threaten another piece. Like, the pawn could be super strong, just eating everything. There was a time where it could threaten like 3-4 pieces in a row. And sometimes that's why it's better to capture, because you're forcing your opponent to deal with the threat, allowing you to recapture whatever was there. And this is not necessarily the greatest example, but that was the point I was trying to illustrate. So that was a really cool thing that I learned. So those were some of the stuff on top of my head that I remembered. Yeah, chess is a really cool game. There's so much you could still learn. So my goal for the next 50 days, so on the 100th day video, I want to learn a small thing every day, something concrete, you know? And on the 100th day, I want to be able to kind of either review all 50 of those things or at least have them there. Also, my cousin, who's like 18, 1900, said, or 17 to 19, whatever, higher rated than me, he said, you know, how he got better was thinking of check, capture, threat, which I already knew about, and why is my opponent doing the move they're doing. So I want to start implementing that in every single move of every single game I play, which I've tried to do in the past, but it's hard to do. You know, it's hard to remember and apply all of these concepts all the time. Anyway, that was cool. Let's look at the games. Let's look at games that I have played. So, after the tournament the other day, I ended up playing a couple of more games. And here, I remember calculating for a while. a few moves earlier, something that would happen here. And I didn't know how to save my knight. Apparently here, this rook move is the best move, I believe. Yeah. And the idea is that if he takes the knight, I have this check. And now he can't take my queen. It's like so smart. I don't know why I never thought about it. And then it just leads to checkmate. So he can't take the knight. Your knight is still fine here. And it becomes hard for, you know, I mean, the game continues, but it becomes hard to figure out what to do for black. And you could eventually, you know, get your knight to safety, probably like this, right? You could take, and the game continues, and you're winning. I didn't see that. I blunder my knight away, and I try to make something happen, but it doesn't work. Even here, you know, I could bring my queen back, no, and whatever, my opponent misses it. He goes for his checkmate. This is what I do. So here I had a checkmating net. The idea is if he goes here, I have this. Oh, whoa. No. That would have been bad. What is it? This. Probably this, right? So I had a mating net. Instead of that, I thought coming in with the queen is better. But even here, I had the opportunity to go into to something that, like, it's just I made so many mistakes here. Or did I? I feel like I played this okay still. I don't remember. Anyway, let's see what happens. So I come in with the queen, I check, I come in with the rook, and now there's a mate. There's a mate because the pawn blocks his access, and I could attack everything. Just this. This is mate. I didn't see that. I didn't see the mate. I come in with this check, which looks more natural to me, and then I take his rook. I take his rook, not seeing this, and like somehow, you know, I sack my rook because I'm kind of forced to there, and I'm just going for the draw here. And at this point, I take his pawn. He moves his queen to trade, but I don't go for the trade. I go for the trade this way because I can see I can catch his pawn, and then I blunder. I blunder. This is crazy. This is some crazy stuff. So if I took one thing from today, for example, this move. I've seen this in puzzles before. Oh, it's so beautiful. The point being that he can't take the pawn because then my other pawn promotes, giving me enough time for my king to come into the position. It's like, bro, that's so beautiful. I had a minute and a half, but this was a 1 second move. Yeah, maybe I should. I don't know. That's just good to review. Second game, again, still after the tournament. A little bit complicated. I think the purpose is to threaten this attack, which I end up threatening a little later. And I see that he could win my rook, but I don't care. I feel like my threat is strong enough, not recognizing that it's not. Like, his king is fine now. And I try to get more pieces into the position, but, you know, I'm just making more and more mistakes, and I'm trying to get my knight in there, and then my opponent blunders because he forgets that his pawn is pinned. So I get very lucky there, and my opponent resigns. And then this is the third and final game, okay? Oh, no, I play two more. So this and then one more. My opponent played with 93.7% accuracy. And this is what I was talking about when I was talking about rating, okay? Rating is misleading. Why is it misleading? Because if you go to someone's profile, a lot of times you just see, like, look, this person's highest rating is 1687, okay? So maybe they just lost, was in a shitty mood, and got down to 1466. That's a big difference, right? And I'm thinking, oh my god, I'm losing to a 1466, and they're playing so well, and this is an example of my calculation with pawns again, right? If he takes this, he has eyes on this, and it's just, that's why the pawn move doesn't work. I'm losing my knight. I didn't want to move it back, but that was my best move. You know, in chess, you have to recognize sometimes your best move is not a great move because you're not in a great position. So that's what happened in this game, and the game goes out to be okay, like, play it okay after that, but I just screwed up the beginning. Okay. Fourth game. Here, the whole plan was to stop the rook from coming into the position. And you'll see what I mean here. Look at the engine. It just says, put something there. Put something there. And you see, like, even here, this is the idea. Because if he takes this pawn, first of all, my rook is looking at it, so it doesn't make sense. And he can't go anywhere else, so he's forced back, right? And that's it. This pawn is like, saves the game for me. I don't do that. We end up trading. I had even an opportunity here to stop his rook from coming into the position. He can't push because of this pawn. And finally, I try to hold it, and my opponent makes mistakes. My opponent makes mistakes because he tries to get into the position, which I thought was the scariest thing. To be honest, I did. And here I had an opportunity to kick the rook out. Wow. Wait, this traps the rook. Wait, I did not see that, guys. I did not see that at all. Like, literally, I didn't see that. 0, 0, 0. I thought the rook gets in, and that was my big mistake. It looks like I didn't analyze this game to its completion. This was terrible. Look, I'm letting him get this pawn. This was my best move, and everything's defended. Wow. Yeah, so that was my blunder. And then it was just terrible. I just played it terrible. Okay. So I was just wrong when I was looking at that. Anyway, the next day, which was today or yesterday, I played really good. And this is the last thing I've pretty much learned the past 50 days. When I listen to music, I play bad. Like, even if I think I'm playing good and I'm just vibing and I feel good. Like, I lost like 3 games during the tournament, but I was listening to music the entire tournament. And I played bad. Maybe subconsciously, it's just I'm multitasking and it doesn't let me play well. I just played bad. I played these 4 games, new day. You know, both day. I didn't have a bad attitude the day before. And this is what happens. I don't play the best, but if you look at my accuracy, it's really high, and I don't blunder. I don't blunder like my opponent blunders here. He takes my rook, allowing my king to get into the position, and I'm up a pawn, and eventually he resigns. And then here, my accuracy is not that high, but I don't blunder. My opponent blunders. In an even game, he brings a rook just to get taken. And then again, 86.4% accuracy, no blunder. I don't play the best. And I find this beautiful move. I'm like, does this really work? Does this really work? And I'm like, it must. Because even if he sacks a bishop, his queen can't get into the game because I'm pinning it against the king. And, I mean, after I took his knight, he resigned. The last game, 86.5% accuracy, right? And finally, I made myself back up to 1,500. Because I was like, I have to by day 50. Like, I can't be below 1,400. It's so stupid to think about the numbers too much. But my goal is to reach 2,000. This game, I thought was a little more interesting. I guess that's why I put everything here. And the idea here was just to trade off the bishops. That bishop was super annoying to me. So that's what I do. And then I start bringing... Oh, I remember this game now. I start bringing all my pieces into the battle. Or my knight and my queen. And I see, oh, if I get rid of these annoying knights, this is mate. This is a real threat. So first I move my king aside. Apparently I didn't even need to do that. Because this check... Like, I can move it aside after. But I move the king aside. I move my knight aside. And I was thinking of moving it here, but I move it here instead. I lose a pawn, but I don't care. I don't care that I lose the pawn. My knight is safe, and I'm pushing. And here he blunders, because I see this beautiful plan, where if his knight moves out of the way, I get mate, right? And he knows that. His best move here was to bring the queen to the side, letting his knight die. Because after takes, how do I attack this? Not so simple, right? I'm still winning, but it's not so simple to get that mate, and my queen's not in the game to stop any threats, I guess. Anyway, doesn't do that. Takes with his knight, and then I find the beautiful move. How do you stop mate here? Apparently the only thing you could do, check, takes, check, just delay it. This is the only way to stop the mate. Oh, like for a short amount of time, and then you get mated. Then no matter what move you do, right? You get mated. So very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Those were my games. I hope you enjoyed. We're on day 50. By day 100, I want to be like, you know, more than 1,600 at least. thank you guys for watching, and say 50 in the comments if you watched this far. I really appreciate you, and have a good day. Bye.